Healthy eating is expensive. I hear this all the time, and honestly, I get it. When you're standing in the grocery store and you're comparing price tags, it really does feel that way. But here's the question I want to sit with today. Compared to what? Because we've been doing this math all wrong. We've been comparing the cost of real food to the cost of cheap and fake food, but we haven't actually been adding up what the cheap food is really costing us. So today we're going to flip that comparison. We're going to talk about what it really means to invest in your health versus simply just spending on it. And I think by the end of this episode, you're going to see your grocery cart and your health dollars very differently. You are showing up for everyone else, but somewhere along the way, you left yourself out and put your health on the back burner. The woman who takes care of everyone else needs someone in her corner too. Hey, I'm Cher, a certified holistic nutritionist, Christ follower, wife, and mom, and I created this podcast for you. Style and Stewardship is for the Christian woman who is done surviving her days and ready to steward her health legacy on purpose with real food built for the season of life that you're in. This is lifestyle stewardship for the woman who wants to do well, be well, and hear well done. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, so real food feels expensive, and that feeling is valid. It really is. But the comparison we're making is incomplete. So I truly believe that there is a difference between investing in something and spending on something. And we all understand this from the standpoint of finances. We understand that in order to get more out later, you have to put something in now. The old saying is it takes money to make money. Well, when you're going to your financial advisor, or you're just putting money in a bank, or you have an IRA or 401k, you know that part of your finances are coming out. So you're not going to see them right now. But what they're doing is they're being invested or diversified in different avenues so that they can collect compound interest, right? So that money can make money, and then that money can make money and begin to continue that process until you get to the age of retirement, or until you get to the place where you're going to pull that money out for some reason. But you understand that that investment that feels like it's taking something away from you now is actually building something bigger for you later. Then there's spending. And this looks like you get your check and you go out and you spend it, and you feel like, I don't have anything to show for this. I don't have anything that I can do with this. So it feels like, okay, I'm investing something or I'm spending something. They both cost something up front. One of them is going to build and one of them is not going to deplete. And that's what the alternative actually looks like. That's what investing versus spending looks like. So what is the alternative when it comes to our health? What is the alternative actually costing us? The alternative isn't just cheap food. What we have been spending money on and what has been costing us individually, collectively, if you're a US citizen, and all of the price hikes in so many areas and the inflation, all the things. But most of what's happening when it comes to doctor's visits and when it comes to hospital care and things like that, I don't mean just you broke a leg, God forbid, and you need someone to fix that and set it in place and you have surgery. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the chronic conditions, these conditions that we have turned into, is basically it's reactive sick care. We're spending money on products. We are spending money on supplements. And we're addressing these symptoms that we're experiencing, but we're not ever touching the root, which means that we're just throwing money at something for a temporary comfort. And the cost of feeling depleted and functioning below our capacity, that right there is what we're actually paying. That's what we're spending. We're spending our capacity. We're spending our health. And we're doing this because we are doing all this reactive spending. So that's going to look like, and financially, when you go to the doctor, that's going to look like constant copays. I know people that are always sick, but they're looking at over-the-counter fixes. They're constantly taking something for heartburn, or they're constantly taking something for a migraine, or they're constantly taking insert whatever that is right here. And all of these are Band-Aid solutions. They're not actually getting to the root of what's going on. So that is a depletion in and of itself. You're just giving out something for a temporary, very, very temporary feeling of being okay and getting by. The cost is also low energy. It's poor sleep. It's chronic inflammation. You know, what I was talking about, those chronic conditions in your day to day life every single day. Why? Because we're not actually investing in our health and moving the needle as it pertains to the root cause of what's actually causing the symptom to begin with. Symptom management is not healthcare. Symptom management is symptom management. It's reactive care. It's not, we're going to put this money into things that are going to support the body's health and wellness overall, but we want to deal with this symptom until it comes back again, and we'll spend more money on that again when it pops up. So don't get me wrong. I'm going to get into some of the statistics as far as what has happened in, to our grocery budget, and those things are very real. But it's like anything else. It's going to take us comparing apples to apples and asking good questions and getting to the root of what's going on, putting down firm, real food foundations before we can move the needle in our health and get to a place where we feel good in our body so we can steward our health and our wellness on purpose. And then we can then have the capacity to steward every other area of our life that we're called to do. So real food is a real investment. This is what it looks like in your health. Real food, we're going to look for things like whole real foods, the quality of it, like what's been done to this food. And we're trying to get our food as close to the way God created it as possible. Innovations are cool, but many of the things that have been innovated have actually, these are real foods don't need labels, and foods that have whole food ingredients don't need a giant ingredient list either. They usually have a sticker on them that says produce, or they'll have a sticker on it that says grass-fed, grass-finished. It's not going to have this long productized food-like thing that you're holding in your hand that has been added, that has so many additives and preservatives and artificial things, all colors, all the things. So that's what's foundational. This isn't optional. So if you are someone who wants to have good health, real food is foundational. It is not optional. I don't know anyone who is subsisting off of fast food, convenient food, beverages that are not water, things that are laden with a bunch of chemicals and sugars and additives and all the things that's doing well. Think about it for a second. If you are one of those people that you're eating more things from a package than you are from your kitchen, from the stove and from the fridge and from the freezer, and maybe canned, maybe frozen, if you're eating more foods that have long ingredient lists and additives and meals that come in the freezer, if you're eating more of that than you are of real whole foods, you're probably not in the best health that you could be. So this isn't about eating a perfect diet. There are healthy things to get from the freezer section. There are healthy things to get from a package. There are healthy things to get from a jar. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is it's about foundational things that we are using to build things. If you think about it, we are what we eat, and that's very, very literal. Because when we're taking in food, say we're taking in protein, we're taking in one of the macronutrients that the body needs that we have to get from food. And we're taking that in, it is doing something. Protein builds DNA. Protein builds new tissue. It's broken down in amino acids that literally turn into cellular function in our body and make up the tissues that our body is made up of. So that's building on something. But when your food isn't working for your body, it's going to be pulling away from those things, or your body's not getting it at all. So there's a breakdown in tissues. There's a breakdown in strength. There's a breakdown. There's an entire list of things that are going to start going awry. So when you eat something that's quote unquote not great for you, you're not going to immediately feel it unless it's something like a stomach ache, or God forbid you get food poisoning. That is not fun. Or you eat something that you're allergic to, also not fun because someone else made it and you weren't aware of that long ingredient list. All of those things are going to work against your health. And everything is going to function better when you're putting things into your body that the body can use, that God created for food. So you're going to get a return on that investment as opposed to just spending something to quell your hunger for the moment. So foundations first, that's going to look like all of the things that we need to do: eating real food, getting sleep, restful sleep, our stress, our movement, our activity. And real food just functions differently than all of these processed alternatives. So there's an alternative for, it seems like, everything. There's an alternative for sugar. There's so many alternatives that are man-made, made in a lab, or cobbled together that are derivatives of real food, made to look and function like real food, but to the body, you're ingesting chemicals. And yes, food is chemicals, but I'm talking about the ones that were made in a lab, not the ones made by God. I'm talking about the altered things. If a quote unquote food is altered, then it is going to have an alteration in your body. So let's take, for example, if you were to eat a artificial flavor. An artificial flavor many times has something in it that is going to drive so many other things in the body. But one of the things that it's going to do specifically is it creates something called excitotoxins. And excitotoxins go to the brain and they do exactly what it sounds like. It's going to increase some dopamine. It's going to give you that pleasurable feeling, like something feels good and you enjoy it, which is a lot of times why, and that can lead to a host of other things. But that is why a lot of times when you eat something somewhere or you eat something out of a package and you try to recreate that thing at home, it never quite tastes the same. And it doesn't hit those marks on your tongue and send those surges to your brain, because it is not a real substance. Quality sourcing is so important. So it's real whole foods, and then it's the quality of those real whole foods. And the reason why I'm peeling all these layers back is because I want you to see that foundationally real food is not optional. If you want to have a healthy life, if you want to have health that is going to pay you back and have a return on the investment. We're all spending money on something. And what is that doing for you? Is that increasing your health, or is it pulling away from it? Is that building things within your body like resilience and energy and all of those things, or is it pulling from it? That's really what it comes down to when we're talking about making investments. Because if we're not investing in our healthcare, we will absolutely have to spend on our sick care. So here are some of the things where I'm going to tell you right now, we are not wrong to think that things are more expensive right now. We know that after the pandemic, prices shot up with a lot of different things due to imports and exports. And then due to shortly thereafter, there was like a mass euthanization because of the bird flu, and then the price of eggs went up and all of the things. So those things are very real. So here are some trends between 2020 and 2026. Inflation and grocery price trends according to the USDA.gov and the BLS, Board of Labor Statistics. Grocery prices grew 11.4% in 2022, which was the fastest annual increase since the year 1979. So by 2023, inflation slowed down to about 5%, and then to about 1.2% in the year 2024, which was well below the 20-year average. The USDA forecasts that grocery prices rising 2.4% this current year in 2026 is a much more moderate pace. So things are starting to level out a little bit. But just for context, from 2020 to 2024, grocery price inflation was far above typical patterns. And this was, again, driven by the pandemic, the disruptions with that, global conflicts that, impact labor costs and animal disease outbreaks and all of that. But when it comes to getting foods like staples like beef and fresh vegetables and non-alcoholic beverages, those prices continue to increase 26, while other things like egg prices have declined from their prior peaks. This is going to be variable depending on what part of the country you live in. Different states, things are more expensive. I was born and raised in New York, so things were always higher there than when I visited other places. It just seemed like, oh my gosh, everything was expensive. But grocery prices have risen much faster than they did in pre-pandemic years. So right after the pandemic, that's pretty much that precipice that turned things around a lot. So households today pay more for familiar staples than they did 5 years ago. But the other thing that is really important to take into consideration is that the prepared meals in similar categories showed minimal price growth. So grocery stores and all of that, yes, those things have risen, but they're moderately paced now. And now what we're finding is that real whole foods are, depending on what they are going to be cheaper price wise than many of the prepared, prepackaged things. Because if we're looking at the cost of something and the price of something, I know that sounds like those are synonyms, but they're not the same thing. So when I say cost, something that's taking away from you. Price, this is just the average going rate of how much you're going to pay for a good or for a service. We're all paying for something, right? We're paying for our Wi-Fi. We're paying for our cell phones, all of those things. That's just cost of doing life, basically. That we don't live in a free society. And what we're doing is when we're comparing these things, even when I'm going online and I'm looking for the differences over these different decades, what I'm finding is that when it says staples, it's talking about a lot of the boxed things. So if you're comparing a box of cereal that you may have purchased in before the pandy, and then the same one that you bought afterwards. Many times companies are shrinking the size and keeping the price the same, or they're doing things like cheapening what they're making the product with as though it wasn't already cheap. And they're using fillers and different things like that so that they can affect their bottom line. So we can look at it and perceive it as, oh, the price of this thing is more expensive than the whole food. But rarely are people taking one apple and comparing it to a literal other apple. What many people are doing is filling their carts with these staples that they're used to buying. And these staples that they're used to buying typically aren't real whole foods. So there are things that we need in our diet, and then there are things that we're just buying because it's out of habit or it's out of tradition of our family. I'm going to buy this cornbread mix because this is what my grandmother purchased, when a real whole food is cheaper all day long with real food ingredients. So if we're comparing apples to apples, we need to compare apples to apples. So the other things that has gone up are going to be the health insurance premiums as well as the cost of pharmaceuticals. This has gone up. Why? Because we have more sick care. And this is when we're talking about families that are really struggling to feel better and to eat better. People that are typically in poorer neighborhoods or areas where they don't have access to real food are, guess what? The sickest population. So this correlation that I believe should be drawn, that they don't have access to real whole foods. I've been in a food desert before. I lived in a food desert before. If you don't have access to real whole foods, then guess what? You are going to be sicker, because the things that you're eating are going to be those that are preserved, that are on a shelf somewhere that can sit for forever. So I'm not going to delve too much into that, but I just wanted to bring up the fact that we have to compare real food to real food, and not just things that are edible, because all things that we can put into our mouth and ingest doesn't mean that it's food to the body, to the cells, nor does it mean that it looks anything like what God created. So there's a version of health spending that feels like investment, but it's not. And that's going to be having substitutions for things. And I've spoken about this before. I get it. Everybody's on a protein kick, and protein is extremely important. And I think I did a video on this. I'm not sure. And that's really important. But what's more expensive, this protein powder that has 20 servings, or spending that same $60 or $50 on real whole food that your body knows and understands, and it hasn't been broken down or sitting on a shelf or turned into a powder? Don't get me wrong, those things have their place, but the staples that are in our diet should be around real whole foods. And when we're not eating those, what are we doing? We're typically supplementing them. Well, the thing that you're supplementing the food with, it doesn't always fill the same gap, because one is broken down in concentrated form, and then another is something that has active enzymes and active, just real foods. We're talking iron, heme iron, we're talking all the things, right? So a lot of people try to optimize before their foundation is even stable. So they jump straight to the supplement. And I did a episode on this already. I'll link it below, on supplements, what people are getting wrong. I'm a huge advocate for supplements when I'm working with a client, but we don't get there until we lay the foundation first, until we look at labs, until we review them and what your body is saying that, hey, you need more support in this area. And if that's a gap we can fill, then we bring that in. We really consider that before we're not going to just bring that in. So you could be paying for things that you don't need because you saw some influencer mixing something into her coffee in the morning, or you don't know what her labs look like. You don't know what she might be struggling with. You're certainly not that same person. So she might be in a different season of life than you. She might be a 20-something-year-old and you're in your 40s or 50s and you're taking something that this woman is taking. It's going to impact you differently than it's going to impact her, especially if it's something you don't need. So we look at like all these trending health products and people are biohacking and they're layering all these things on top of an unchanged lifestyle. That will never work for you because you can't out supplement poor health. You can't out supplement the daily foundational things that you're doing that are impacting your health and that are compounding over time. What you do most often is impacting your health more than anything else. So if you take supplements, but you're eating drive-through food all the time, that's not supporting you. And you're not going to reap the benefit that you could if the proper foundations were laid and you actually needed whatever that thing is. So that's like discernment is knowing the difference, right? We have to discern where we are in our health, in our wellness, what we're stewarding, what season of life we're in, and comparing apples to apples. And when it comes to our finances, we can always move those around and shift those in a way that we're investing instead of just spending. That's the part that I think so many people are missing. They're like, "Oh, healthy food is healthy food is expensive. It's expensive." Well, are you just layering healthy food on top of those prepackaged normal things that your family has traditionally purchased and those brands that you're used to getting? Like, are you grabbing the packs of the sports drinks and spending $6 on those? That's a very new invention. What could that $6 go towards? Could that $6 go toward something that's more beneficial to your health? I would say so. That's a man-made product, especially if it's lime green or ice blue or all these fluorescent colors and all of these fake sugars and all of the stuff that's in these things. Many times people are paying for poor health and they're doing it consistently in a compounding way that they're not even realizing because everybody else on the soccer field has this, or because every other mom is going through this drive-through line to eat this food. And it's like, is real healthy food that you make at home truly more expensive? And when we compare it, it certainly is not. 3 people can go through a drive-through and get a couple of meals and easily spend $30 to $40. Easily. $30 to $40 added to your weekly grocery budget. Now we're talking. Do you know how many meals you can make out of $30 to $40? And guess what? Not have all of the health deleterious effects of those things that have been deep fried, of those things that have been artificially flavored, artificially preserved, that really have, other than maybe a little bit of protein and some carbs, have no lasting, meaningful, investing quality in your health. That to me is what cheap food feels like and looks like. And that also is what we're not comparing. We can't compare what you can get at the store and make at home, even if it isn't like the best quality that there is going to be more beneficial to your health than the thing that you're buying through the drive-through. So stewardship is a long game. This is where we're looking at what we're doing with what we have over time and on purpose and with conviction, because your health absolutely matters, because you are in this body that God has given you and entrusted to you. Healthy living, healthy eating, doing things in the context of investing in your health and knowing that you're going to get a return on investment, that right there, that's everything. Doesn't mean that we're going to eat perfectly. I say this all the time. This is not the Garden of Eden. However, you can make better choices with what's in your hands, or getting the information on how to move forward with that. What foundations need to be laid, what real food looks like, what's actually beneficial to you and to your family over the long haul. Food Eating, it's a choice we're making every single day. If we're able to make that choice for ourselves, thank you, God. But not doing what's going to be most beneficial to your body is so much more harmful than most people are considering. And it's so important that we steward that on purpose. So if you're sitting there with this episode and you're thinking, I don't even know where my foundation is right now, that is exactly what a discovery call is for. We'll take a real look at where you are right now, what season of life, what your body has been telling you, and whether my 3-month coaching program is the right next step for you. It's a conversation. I'm going to listen to everything that you say before and have a real conversation before we even get there, because we have to be a good fit for one another, because it truly is a partnership. So you can find the link to book that in the show notes, or you can go to styleandstewardship.com/CALL, and I would love to talk to you. So until next time, your life matters. What you do with it matters. So what will you steward about?